Mickey's back. I haven't washed any clothes again, so on to reserves. Anyway, welcome everyone to my review of the Panasonic Leica. Panasonic Leica? Leica Panasonic? The Panasonic Leica 12-60. Now this sits in the middle of a trilogy of lenses. You've got the 8-18, this the 12-60, and supposedly there's a 50-200 coming out as well. But that's gone a bit quiet, so I don't really know what's happening with that. Now, I'm interested in this lens for three reasons. The first is that earlier this year, I bought a Panasonic G85 that I'm filming on now, and it came with a Lumix 12-60 lens. A lens I've been very impressed with because it's quite cheap, it's light and it's sharp, and it's just super versatile. I mean, it's full frame equivalent of 24 to 120, which is pretty much all you need for everyday shooting. The second reason I'm interested in this lens is that I'm testing the Panasonic G9 at the moment, and every single day I'm falling in love with it more and more, and I think it's probably going to become my next camera. And it's available as a kit with a Leica 12-60. Now, as with any time you buy a body and a lens together, you get quite a good discount on the lens. In this case, the lens actually only costs about £500 when you buy it with the body. Normally at the moment, you'll struggle to pick it up for under £850, which is quite a saving. And thirdly, I like the font that they've used. It's quite a nice font. I probably shouldn't let that impact my purchasing decisions too much. Now, I imagine you guys are the same as me in that over the years I have watched probably hundreds of videos on lens reviews, and by and large they're very, very useful, but they can also be quite tedious. Which is why this review won't focus on anything that can be fixed in post. So I'm not going to talk about things like vignetting, chromatic aberrations, distortion, none of that stuff. I'm only going to talk about things that can't be fixed in post. So things like sharpness, bokeh, build quality, minimum focusing distances, and hopefully I'll be able to wrap this up ASAP before you fall asleep. So without further ado, let's start with sharpness. Now the other day, believe it or not, it was nice and sunny here, and I thought, oh well, I haven't seen the sun for about 6 months and I'm in desperate need of vitamin D, so I'll go outside to do the sharpness test. I'll take the Lumix 12-60 and I'll take this lens and I'll find a nice brick wall to do a sharpness test against. And I did. Trouble is, the wall was in the shade. Now once I stopped crying and realised it was still a good wall to do a test on, I got to work and I found basically the same thing that all the other reviews I've read of this lens have found. And that is that between 12 and 25mm, it's not all that different in performance than the Lumix 12-60. And that's pretty much at all apertures. However, when you get past 25, the Leica starts to pull away in terms of sharpness, and the difference becomes more pronounced the longer the focal length you use. Out of focus rendering. Now, this isn't the kind of lens you buy if you want nice, creamy, blurry backgrounds. I mean, it's 60mm wide open. It gives the depth of field equivalent of f8 on a full frame camera. So it's not exactly an art lens, but when you do manage to get an out of focus, blurry background, you see some nice shapes. I mean, yes, off center they're not circle and you do get some onion rings, but overall, it's quite pleasant. I mean, what I would say is that the Lumix does look exactly the same. And again, it's a much cheaper lens. Minimum focusing distances at the wide end, this, the Leica, and the Lumix are both exactly the same. They focus at 0.2 meters, which for Americans is 0.66 feet. Now at the long end, the Leica does focus 1 centimeter closer. So, don't know if that makes a difference to you. So we should probably talk about variable aperture. This lens, as I think I've mentioned, goes from f2.8 to f4 at the long end, which might put some people off, particularly video shooters if they're hoping to zoom in throughout shots, because you can't be wide open without closing down the aperture in shot as you zoom. That, to me, for my own personal use, isn't an issue. What is an issue is that this is only f2.8 at 12mm. I was kind of hoping it would stay at f2.8 to, I don't know, 18, maybe towards 25, but no. As soon as you move away from 12mm, the aperture starts to close. And that's much the same as the Lumix. The Lumix at 12mm opens up 2/3 of a stop slower at f3.5, but as soon as you move away from 12mm, it starts closing down quite quickly. And on the Leica, you're at f4 by about 40mm, and on the Lumix, you're at f5.6 by about 40mm also. Build quality. So the Leica is all metal, apart from the lens hood. The lens hood's plastic. Don't really know why they've done that, but it does have this nice locking mechanism, which means it won't just slip off like it does on some other cameras. Haven't had that issue with the Lumix actually, to be fair. The Leica also has two switches, an AF to MF switch and a stabilizer on-off switch too, which is very nice, particularly when you're shooting on a tripod and you want to turn off the stabilization all the time. The Leica is about a third heavier than the Lumix, which might be partly due to the fact it's got more elements, 2 more elements I think, and also, as I said, it's made out of metal. This is also freeze-proof, where the Lumix isn't. The Lumix is just splash-proof and dust-proof. This is obviously splash-proof and dust-proof as well, maybe even more so, but yeah, it's freeze-proof on top of that. And it's also, as you might expect, a little bit bigger than the Lumix. Now I have touched on price, but I think it's worth emphasising again that this is £850 versus the Lumix version, which is £360. And if I ask myself if there's that amount of difference between the lenses, I think the answer has to be no. So what I'd say is this: if you're looking for one of these lenses, don't have either of them yet, and you think you could benefit from the extra freeze proofing, the extra bit of light, these switches, the extra bit of sharpness at the longer focal lengths, if you think you could benefit from those, then yeah, absolutely consider this. If you already have the Lumix 12-60, then rather than spend all the extra money on this, I would keep the Lumix 12-60 because it's a good lens, and I'd get a couple of nice primes that would be sharper than this probably, and would certainly be faster than this. As for me, I think for the G9, I'm probably going to pair it with a 12-35 and then a 35-100 to keep a continuous 2.8 aperture. But yeah, that's still all to be decided. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This channel has been quite sort of tech heavy lately. I've been reviewing a few different things. It's not always going to be like that. I'm quite enjoying taking a look at gear, but I do also want to make other kinds of videos. So soon, I shall do that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.